Hola amigos and welcome to another Spain video. Today I'm going to share 7 things that I wish I knew before I moved to this country. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I said 7, it could be 6, it could be 8, I don't know, but 7 sounds like a good number. What do you think? Let's start. Now, lots of people romanticize about moving to a country like Spain, think it's going to be a breeze, think it's going to be a piece of cake, but it's not the case. It's a huge move, it's a huge change for a lot of people, and that means that you've got to do your research. That is fundamental. Research, research, research. For example, there'll be culture shocks, there'll be bureaucratic nightmares, and other things that will catch you off guard when you move to this country. And believe me, it's not just the usual things like language barriers and homesickness. Let's be honest, it's much more than that. So let's get stuck into some of those 7 things that I wish I knew before I moved here. Now I'm going to start with something that has proven to be a real headache over the years, and that is bureaucracy. Now this is a topic that has been spoken about a lot. You can find endless information on the internet with people telling you just how bad bureaucracy is in this country, but until you come and live here, you can't understand just how bad it is. In fact, bureaucracy in Spain isn't just paperwork, it's almost an Olympic event. And believe me, when you first move here, there is going to be endless bureaucratic tasks that you will need to do. You have to work out your residency, you have to get your ID cards, you have to register for the healthcare system here, and that is going to take time. Again, the secret here is preparation, preparation, and more preparation, and always be ready for last-minute surprises. For example, not having the correct documentation. And another thing that you need to know is that it doesn't matter how good your Spanish language skills are, when you start dealing with red tape and bureaucracy here, you'll struggle. But the good news is, when it comes to bureaucracy, is that there are loads of people who are willing to give you a hand for a small fee, of course. And I'm going to be honest, I wish I had have used these people when I first came to Spain, and it would have saved me a lot of time. Now, another thing that a lot of people wish they knew before they moved to this country was a better knowledge of the Spanish language. Not necessarily my case, because I studied Spanish back in university, so I hit the ground running when I came, but numerous times I have seen people move to this country, not speak the language well enough, and it is a struggle for them. Spanish, as you would expect, is a lot more than hola and gracias, but you'd be surprised at just how many people haven't prioritized learning the Spanish language before they come. Sounds silly, right? But it happens. Now, the good news about this is that the Spanish language is not a difficult language to master. If you spend time, if you want to learn the language, you can. And nowadays, there are endless ways to learn a new language. You can download apps, you can go to language classes, the internet is full of Spanish lessons, so there are no excuses for not learning the language well before you come. Now, another thing that I wish I knew before I moved to Spain is that the cost of living can vary greatly depending on where you are in the country. And let's be honest, Spain is not as cheap as it used to be, especially in big cities like Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, or other big cities in the country. Now, of course, depending on where you come from might influence whether you think Spain is a cheap country or not. If you're coming from the north of Europe, everything here might seem cheap, but if you're coming from some other countries where the cost of living is not that high, Spain may be an expensive country for you. And as I said, if you're coming to one of the big cities here, get ready for a shock, because the prices in a lot of big cities here, especially when it comes to housing, are out of control at the moment. And of course, the part of Spain that you move to will also influence the cost of living. If you move to a colder part of the country, basically anywhere in the center and north of Spain, you're going to have heating costs, but you might not have heating costs if you move to the Canary Islands. There, you'll probably need to spend your money on air conditioning. So those are some of the things that you need to take into consideration too. So make sure you understand what your monthly costs are going to be, and as I said, they could vary depending on where you're living in the country. Now, another thing I wish I knew before I moved to Spain was the amount of public or bank holidays in this country. The last time I counted, there were 14 official public holidays here. And another thing about some public holidays here is that they will vary according to where you're living. For example, some of the public holidays that we celebrate here in Madrid are not celebrated in other parts of the country. And in some months, for example December, the month that we're currently in, the amount of public holidays can virtually paralyze the country. And why is this important? Well, if you're planning to work in Spain, maybe be self-employed in Spain or start a business in Spain, you'll need to take this into account because there'll be some months where you won't make much money. And while I'm on the subject of holidays, it's also important to know that a lot of people here in Spain take their annual holidays in one hit. And that's normally in the summertime so that people can enjoy everything that this country has to offer, especially the fantastic beaches. Now, another thing I wish I knew before I moved to Spain is the pace or the rhythm that things happen in this country. And let's be honest, sometimes you have to get used to things moving slowly. And siesta time here in Spain, although it sounds funny, needs to be embraced. And what I mean by that is that if you're planning to get some things done in what for you may be the peak time of the day, for example, between 2 and 5 p.m. here in Spain, that might not be happening because in a lot of parts of Spain, things shut down between those hours. And it's not only that siesta time that can prove frustrating because a lot of businesses, for example banks and government institutions, don't work past 2:30 or 3 p.m. So a lot of things can only be done between the hours of 9 and 3. So if you want to enjoy life here to the maximum, you will need to embrace the siesta time from the moment you arrive. I'm not saying that you need to take a 3-hour nap in the afternoon, maybe 20 minutes will suffice. So be prepared for that downtime or dead time in that time slot between 2 and 5. And remember that in many parts of the country, you won't be able to get much done. Now, another thing I wish I had known before moving to Spain is just how important food is in the Spanish culture. In fact, timetables and social life in this country are centered around food. And I wish I'd known just how long people here can spend eating meals. It's unbelievable. And I will say that meal times for me were also very, very difficult to get used to, especially when it comes to lunch and the quantities of food that people eat at lunchtime. Amazing. And if you're like me, and I'm going to be honest, I was always used to a light lunch around 12 midday, 12:30, 1 p.m, then getting used to the late meal times here, for example, not having lunch until 2 p.m, and also the quantity of food that you eat at 2 p.m. will take some time to get used to, and that leads me to dinner times, which can be very, very late indeed. In fact, having late dinners is still something that I have not got used to. Now, another thing I wish I knew before moving here is just how diverse this country really is. And not only is Spain culturally diverse, linguistically diverse, but it's also geographically very, very diverse. And that's something, as I said, I didn't really know. A lot of people move to Spain thinking that the different regions here are all the same, but nothing could be further from the truth. And when you start traveling around Spain, visiting different parts of the country, you start to realize just how diverse Spain really is. For example, the Mediterranean culture here in Spain, which a lot of people experience, is way different to the Atlantic culture, for example. And also, in certain regions here in Spain, you can also find a lot of diversity. For example, in Andalusia, the western part of Andalusia is different to the eastern part of Andalusia, and a lot of people don't realize that. But the most positive thing for me about the diversity here in Spain is that you won't get bored in a hurry, because there'll always be a new part of the country to visit, new parts of the country to see, and that is very, very interesting indeed. Now, another thing that a lot of people wish they had known before moving to Spain, not necessarily in my case because I had a Spanish girlfriend when I came, so I was able to make friends with the locals, is just that. Make friends with the locals. Don't just stick to expat communities. The only way that you can fully understand Spain, get to know all of the good things, but also all of the bad things about the country, is through local knowledge. Because let's be honest, it's the locals that know the ins and outs of this place better than anybody, right? And Spanish people can be very open, very friendly, and willing to take you in to their inner circle if, of course, you make the effort. So learn a little bit of the language and open yourself up to the local community. You won't regret it. And the final thing I wish I knew before moving to Spain is that you've got to have an open mind before coming here and be willing to embrace new things. And if you've got those two things, your move here should be an unforgettable experience. And believe me, if I can move to a country like this and make it happen and make a life for myself here, then you can too. I've been able to adapt to the Spanish lifestyle. I've been able to adapt to the Spanish culture. And for me, it's been a very, very rewarding experience. So, time to wrap this video up, and I hope that you've found some of the things that I have spoken about today of use. Questions and comments, please leave them in the section below. If you have anything to add to the conversation today, please, the comment section is the place for you, and I'd love to hear your feedback. If you have been living in Spain for a while, let me know some of the things that you wish you had known before moving here. And if you're planning on moving to Spain, let me know some of the things that you're worried about. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, thumbs down if you didn't. I'll see you in the next one. Hasta luego from Chinchon.